Um, Back here to make another video. I know the first one was kind of long, and this video I really don't know how to do it right because this is the 250 video. This is one, sorry about that, this is one that everyone wanted me to do, but I really don't know how to, because honestly 250s are a lot of personal preference. It depends on your riding style, depends on the lines you take, and just overall how you ride on the game and what's comfortable to you is what really barrels down in the 250 class, because realistically all the 250s are the same. Personally, my favorite is the Honda 250, just it being my favorite bike in the game. I've always felt comfortable on it, really smooth, and I'll go over the setup on it in a second. The KTM 250 is, in my opinion, the fastest 250 in the game. Then you have the Kawasaki, which it's really consistent, and it really has good top speed. It really holds good in ruts. It's a really good 250 overall, so it kind of compares over the other ones when it comes to long races. Now the RMZ is kind of hard to explain. It rides like the 450 RMZ, but it's not as fast. It's just kind of a toned down RMZ 450, and it does perform well, but I feel like it doesn't keep up with, say, the KTM. Long races, like I said, the Kawasaki, it really doesn't keep up with that either. Now, one you'll see a lot of people use is the YZ. This is not a bad choice at all. This is a very good bike, runs very well throughout the entire race, no matter how long the race is, no matter what track you're at. Normally, no matter what setup you have, this bike is going to run really well. And as you see, I really don't have the YZ or the Suzuki leveled up yet, which I'm gonna do because I like all the 250s. They're all worth leveling up and getting, very much so. The YZ though, I would use the setup on the YZ that I'm gonna put on the Kawasaki, because you can kind of run them the same. There's not too much of a difference between the Kawasaki and the YZ 250 when it comes to setup. Riding wise, the YZ is a little bit more stiff. I'll probably just go over that real quick, because the YZ is really stiff. It seems to stand up more, and it has really good grip no matter what tires you run. It really has good grip. It has really good traction. You get around the track with ease when it comes to just not being able to stick. Sand tracks, you really don't slide out as much. Supercross, you have amazing traction. You can whip really well, get your scrubs off really well. I don't have to worry about too much of sliding out or too much power coming out of a corner, because it really doesn't matter with this bike. This bike just kind of puts all that behind it and really lets you just kind of get the hammer down. So it's a good overall bike. The YZ, or I mean the RMZ, sorry. It's good. It rides just like the 450. So it's kind of loose, but also it has a little bit of stiffness in there. It's really weird how the RMs ride on this game, honestly, even though I like the 450. But I mean, this bike, there's not much to it. Every setup that was in my last video about the 450s, if you go check that out, and the setup you saw for the RMZ 450, honestly, just throw them on this bike. There's really not much to this bike. This bike rides just like the 450, but it's just in comparison to all the other 250s. Just go put on the normal 450 setup you have, put it on this bike, you're gonna feel like the same. Like you're riding a 450, you're just gonna have less speed, and your clutch boosts are gonna be more powerful, where it's 250 and you're gonna have to preload more. That's about the only two differences. I mean, it's not really hard at all to transition into the RMZ 250. It's probably the easiest bike to learn when it comes to riding the 250s. The Kawasaki, very loose bike, but very heavy also. So you would think it'd be more stiff and more stand-up, kind of hard to roll, but honestly it's a very loose 250. It is the heavier one. This one in the YZ is probably the heavier 250s. Rides well. Like I said earlier, really good top speed, really keeps up. Really hard to really keep up with someone that rides the KX250 well, especially in later races, because it does really well in ruts, really well on kind of blasted out tracks where there's no berms anymore. They're all just kind of gone. It's just kind of like rutted out flat tracks. Like this bike just holds well all around. It's a really good bike, and It's one I would recommend for a lot of people, especially in public rooms. If you want to ride a good 250, this bike is definitely one to throw on to. I'll go over the setup for it real quick, and for this setup you can use it on the YZ. The first thing you probably want to do is go here, kind of like the Kawasaki 450. I run the Pro Circuit TI4R. You can run the carbon on this one. The carbon Yosh I would recommend for the Kawasaki 250 and the YZ 250. It works really well on all of them. It's a really good pipe all around. Honestly, I'm going to put that on right now. It's honestly a really good pipe on this bike. Tires, Max SI, more stuff about tires in the first video on my 450 setup. Suspension wise, I run factory connection on just about every 250. If I don't run factory connection, I run Enzo. In my opinion, those are the only two suspensions worth running on a 250. Factory connection keeps you low, gives you a little bit of bounce to get those 250s over the jumps when you need to scrub, gives you a really good preload. Enzo, it's made to keep you in the air. You scrub with this on a 250, you're going to clear that jump. You really don't have to worry about bogging out or really casing or under jumping or underestimating any kind of jump. The Enzo suspension just kind of has that lift and push when you get off a jump to get you over it and really help you out. So factory connection is what I'm going to run on it. You know, factory chassis, stock brakes still. Explained that in the first video. I use that on all bikes. But this setup you can pretty much run on the YZ and the Cowie. The only thing I would change would be, if you really wanted to, you can run the FMF pipe on 250s. It seems to work better on these. Run the carbon. On the YZ, you probably want to run the TI4R Pro Circuit. I just feel like it's better. I just feel like it has more speed to the bike, really keeps that bike moving. It's really good for it. Suspension wise on the YZ, you're probably going to want to run Enzo. If you don't, Pro Action does work well on the YZ. And, you know, Enzo, factory connection, Pro Action, that's about the only one to really recommend for the YZ. There's really not too much when it comes to suspension that I would recommend to the 250s other than, like I said, factory connection, Enzo. It just, nothing else really seems to compare with them when it comes to actual racing on the 250s. Now, I'm going to skip the KTM because there's some stuff I have to get to about that one, but the Honda being my favorite bike of the game, I'm going to go ahead and jump on that one. Now, this one is kind of weird to set up. This is probably the longest, probably going to be the longest part of the video. This one you can set up the most, because this one has more of a your own feel to it. Now, the Hondas, I forgot to go over them earlier, but the one downfall they have is they slide out a lot. Their rear tire is very loose, gives out a lot, and you just kind of have to have that riding style to slide your tire out, kick it out, get it in that turn, and just dig deep for your speed coming out of it and be able to catch all your momentum back up. So it's a really weird riding style when you ride the Honda, but it's a fast bike. Now, I would recommend the titanium Yosh. That's what I use. If you don't use that, Pro Circuit TI4R. Probably the best suspension you can run on this bike, or the best exhaust you can run on this bike, is those two exhausts. The carbon Yosh does work. I don't think as well as titanium for this. Leo Vents works fine. If you want to run carbon FMF, that works fine too. This bike does have a lot of kind of customization you can go with when it comes to setups. Big gun pipe, honestly, you want to use the Evo R, works fine. Nothing against that. The Dubach pipes, I really wouldn't put them on any bikes, but honestly, you can run the carbon fiber, run it on this 250, and it'll run fine. You can run them on most Blazes too, just in case you ever do want to run that pipe. But this bike really you can use about any exhaust you want. It's just kind of personal preference. It just it's a really well-rounded bike. It just slides out a lot, man. Like, I love this bike. Man, it slides out every turn. There's no hope in not making it slide out. It goes every turn. But titanium Yosh, Pro Circuit TI4R, my recommendations, run one of those two pipes. Personally, I would say run the TI4R. I just have gotten used to titanium Yosh. If you get used to titanium Yosh on it, that's fine. A lot of the fast laps that have been ran by Honda 250 were ran with the titanium Yosh, but it's just kind of an acquired style to ride with when it comes to this bike. Tires, I use IT tires. Reason is, like I said, this bike slides out a lot. This gives you more grip. Lets you kind of dig into the dirt more on every track. You really need that extra dig, or else you're going to slide out so much that you're not going to have any time, you're not going to gain any speed, you're going to lose all your momentum, and you're not going to make it through any turn without almost crashing or crashing. I run RG3 suspension just because I really like it when it comes to running it with the titanium yoke. It has a really well kind of balance between the two as a setup. It's a really good setup to put together. If you run Pro Circuit and that Pro Circuit pipe I was telling you about, that's a perfect setup for this bike. It's honestly a really good practice setup. It's honestly how to get good at this game if you want a bike to ride and a good setup to use on it, something to practice to get good on this game. Run Pro Circuit on the Honda 250 and just put you like some Sedona tires on, and that's a really good practice setup for just learning to get good, learning new lines, anything you want to do. It's a really good practice setup. I would say also factory connection will work. You can run that with the titanium yoke or the Pro Circuit. I would personally say, if I was telling you what setup to run, I would say run factory connection TI4R Pro Circuit pipe. I would say it's a great one. If I didn't tell you that, I'd probably tell you Enzo suspension with that Pro Circuit pipe. Pro Action, they're not that well on this bike. It's really not worth trying. Race Tech, once again, not that well. It really does not work good on that bike. I will explain real quick. RG3, the reason I like it on this bike is it just kind of keeps your power down, it seems, and really easy to keep the momentum up on this bike. And it seems to help your front tire so you don't get any kind of front end lock, and you really don't slide out too much because of your front tire in turns. It really seems to help you. 4PR performance, I haven't really mentioned it much in this video, I know, but man, it's really not worth it for 250s. If you're gonna put it on a bike, I would only recommend the RMZ 450. I really don't see 4PR performance being used on any of the 250s. I really wouldn't recommend it. If you do use it on 250 and you're comfortable with it, that's fine. I'm not saying don't use it, or I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, personally, I don't think it's worth using on a 250. But like I said, most 250s come down to just personal preference and riding styles. So mainly just whatever setup you find, whether it's out of this video or if it's one that you've come up with, whatever setup you find really that makes you feel comfortable on the track is what setup you want to use on 250s. As long as you're comfortable on these bikes, you'll be pretty quick. Factory chassis, stop brakes. Now the KTM I'll get to. This bike I didn't touch on earlier either. This bike is complicated to explain. It is very light, very loose riding, but it has amazing grip, and it has a lot of like downforce on the back tires, so you can really get the power down. In my opinion, this is the fastest 250 in the game. I love it. All my 250 fast times, except for I think maybe 3 or 4, were ran on this bike, and it's a really good bike all around. There's plenty of different setups you can use and you can try and that you can throw on this bike, and they'll probably run pretty well. I mean, I would say a normal setup to throw on this just to try would be like a carbon FMF. Runs well, works fine. This is going to probably be the quickest part of the video just because, like I said, I don't know, this bike is just really hard to explain. But the reason it's going to be a quick part is, like I said, light, power down on the back tire, really fast bike, really loose, really get the, your momentum, it stays up. I would only recommend one setup for this bike, and it's what I have always ran on this bike, and I've ran it since the day I bought the bike and got it to 3-star. I have not changed my setup once, and that is running the carbon yoke. You got your tires, throw on the SIs, you got your suspension, throw on the factory connection, and then once again, stock brakes. I don't see any other better setup for this bike. I really feel like that setup on this bike is probably the best setup you can get, my opinion. I know a lot of this is opinionated, but I feel like that is the best and only setup that should be ran on this bike. It's the only thing I've found that is just over top of all the other 250s and all the other setups for this bike. It just, nothing compares to it when it comes to speed and it comes to just raw power, momentum into lap times, or even how fast you do a race, how good you do in a race when it gets rutted, or even quick 3-lap races and early in the race. This bike does well on all of it. I've had no complaints with this bike. I mean, that's about all I can say about it. Just, you know, I would say it's about the only setup to run, and I would recommend running this bike with that setup. If I had to tell you a 250 to run, I'd tell you to run this bike, that setup, and never change it, and just get good on this bike. For the Blaze, I would say just run the Kawasaki setup I gave you. It works fine on the Blaze, really not too much difference. You can honestly use the Honda setup too. The Blaze is just kind of a good all-around 250. There's really not too much to it. Same thing for Takashi. Runs the same as the Blaze. So kind of the Kawasaki and Honda kind of mix up, or use whatever setups you really feel comfortable with out of those, and just throw it on a Blazer or Takashi. It'll work fine. And you know, if any of these setups help you out, from the last video, this video, or the 125 video, it's bound to happen here pretty soon. If any of these setups help you out, let me know. I really like to see if you guys have improved, if you guys really like the setups, if you feel comfortable on them, or what you like about the setups, or if you have any other setups that you think might be better, any different combinations. I'd like to hear them, and maybe I'll throw them in a video, and we'll have kind of like a test. But thank you for watching, and yeah, if any of this helped you out, let me know.